On this week's episode of Whitetail Cribs, we're visiting with Drew Brown from Ohio. Drew gives us the grand tour for his Whitetail Bachelor pad, showcasing some of the bucks he's tagged over the years. You may even recognize a deer or two from a season of Bow Madness from Drury Outdoors that he was on, or an episode of Whitetail Freaks from season 2. Be sure to check out all of the deer, including a tailless whitetail buck. So if you enjoy the episode, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe. Let's get in the video.
What's going on, guys? My name is Drew Brown. Welcome to my Whitetail Bachelor pad. Okay, we'll start with this room in here, kind of give you a history of where my passion for whitetails really started. So come with me. All right, so in here, this is kind of where my passion for chasing mature whitetails began. I actually started deer hunting with my dad when I was 3 years old, but the passion didn't really amplify until I was about 13, so 10 years later. It's really crazy how it happened for me. I had a gift card to Dick's Sporting Goods one year for Christmas. I bought a DVD series that the Drurys had, Whitetail Madness. Started reaching out to the Drurys, got to know Mark Drury a little bit. Years later, I got selected to be on their show, Bow Madness, I shot it with my PSE. In here, I have a little bit of a sporting goods store of my own. It's crazy the amount of stuff we as whitetail hunters acquire over years. My camo collection from stuff from back in the 80s that my dad wore. I can remember being a young boy growing up, seeing him wear that stuff, to now I'm wearing vintage stuff, which is kind of cool. This jacket, back in, I think it was 88 or 89, Mossy Oak came out with this camo pattern, which is their tree stand pattern. My dad bought this brand new back then. Tractor Supply, believe it or not, I don't even think they sell camouflage anymore, but he told me the story. It was too expensive. He couldn't afford it when they first got it in during hunting season, so he actually hid that jacket under the shelf, went back after Christmas, bought it on sale, and I grew up, that's what I remember my old man hunting in, so it's kind of neat. So here's the more modern version of it that I now hunt in. My little girl sees me wearing that, which is kind of cool, so it'd be neat to see the progression over the years of camouflage. Like I said, I started shooting compound bow about a decade and a half ago. Started with Bowtech, got into filming, got into PSE. This is a pretty sentimental bow to me. Chris Ward was one of the original Drury Dream Season candidates. This was his bow that he actually won that season with. I became friends with Chris when I was 16 years old. He gave me this bow that chased my dream. He autographed it and called it the Dream Catcher. And this is actually the first bow I ever killed a deer on television with, which is kind of neat. Kept it in the collection. So we'll come in here to this room. This is kind of where the story begins with killing deer. We'll start with this deer here. This is actually my dad's deer. He killed this deer in 1988. I wasn't even alive yet, but I can remember growing up as a young boy, seeing this deer in his man cave and just like, wow, I hope someday I can kill a deer like that. That deer actually netted 145 and 4/8 Ohio big buck, which is awesome as an 8-point, and that's back in the day before trail cameras, before food plots. I mean, that's back when guys were wearing Carhartts and just getting it done, you know. So the story hearing that growing up as a kid was just awesome. So that's my dad's like biggest buck he's ever killed. That was a gun kill. And then this 12 here, Dad just killed a couple years ago. That's another gun kill of his. That's his biggest typical, just as far as tines and appearance. Score-wise, it's not, but pretty neat have the history with that. If you look at this picture here, this is really, really cool. Like I said, I started deer hunting when I was 3. Here's a picture of my mom and dad with me my first evening. It's been in my blood. I've grown up hunting. I love it. I'm hoping someday my little girl gets into it. So this deer here was actually the first deer I ever killed on film. That aired, I think it was 2012 on Outdoor Channel on Bow Madness with the Drurys. That was a fun hunt. Not a real high scoring deer, but just I was able to get it on film, and it was, you know, quality enough that the Drurys would accept it. To me, was humongous. So then we moved down this way. I don't really remember the years on these deer, but just some consistent killing back in my younger days. The cool thing about these deer in this room, every one of these deer except for that 12 point have all come from the exact same patch of timber. Some of these were killed out of the same tree, like this real wide buck here. I killed him, I'm wanting to say it was 2000, 14, I killed this deer on film. I was filming for the Whitetail Fix on Sportsman channel when I killed him. That actually aired episode 2. Well, then later that year, Dad killed this same buck, same patch of timber, like just right up the tree line. So that was kind of neat. We killed both of those on film. This actually came from Mark Drury's farm in Iowa, autographed by him and Terry. It was kind of neat back in my Drury days. That was a cool gift to get from them. Come with me upstairs. We'll show you my last half decade worth of deer. All right, so there's a few deer up here that were a little bit older, but they're kind of on the bigger scale compared to what you saw downstairs. We'll start with this dark chocolate rack up here. I killed him in 2006. That's the first buck I ever killed with a compound bow, which was awesome for me. A huge accomplishment. I mean, that was back in the day for myself where I hunted out of a climber. I picked a tree and I went. If I saw a good deer, I was going to shoot it. It wasn't like today with all the technology that we use. I knew that deer was in the area. I didn't know back then how to read deer sign, didn't know anything about reading maps or anything like that. I just had seen him, knew he was in there. I actually thought he was a 10-point. If you can see, he's missing his G4 on the left side. He just didn't grow it. He's just a 9-point. Well, I shot that deer the morning of November 6th. Put an arrow through him a little high. Couldn't find him. Blood trail was very sparse. Dad helped me look for basically a whole day. Couldn't find him. The neighboring farm, we're real good friends with those guys, said, hey, shot this dark chocolate 10. If you happen to see him, find his rack, just wondering if maybe I could get it from you. Well, a week and 2 days later, I get a phone call from the neighbor that said, I think your deer's laying dead in our front yard. I identified the buck over the phone. Sure enough, it was him. Infection killed him. He literally, I'm not joking you, died like feet off their sidewalk. It was almost just like a gift from above. But these two skulls up here, kind of sentimental to me. The one on the right's mine. The one on the left's my dad's. Like I said, I killed that deer in 06. This is my 07 deer, and Dad also killed that deer in 07. So we kind of did a matching European mount, which is kind of cool. Like I said, I do like to turkey hunt. I'm more of a whitetail hunter. That's my passion. The significance behind that turkey mount, I killed that Easter Sunday, early 2000s, I can't remember. But it was cool. It was the first bird I ever called in on my own. Killed him, so I got him half mounted. Moving around the room, we'll go to this deer here. I killed that actually in West Virginia, believe it or not. That is a West Virginia kill. Killed that on public ground. For the state of West Virginia, if you know, there's pockets there where there are good deer just like anywhere else, but for my area, that was an exceptional good deer. It's right across the river from where I live here in Ohio. Some of the locals told me there was a big 8 in the area. I went in, scouted, found a huge rub line, strategically figured out where to put my stands. 3 days hunting in there, I killed him. Moving on to this deer here. I killed this deer, I forget the year, but it was in Iowa, late season muzzleloader, Van Buren County. My family is originally from Jefferson County, Iowa. So every year I try to travel back, like I said, and hunt with some cousins and uncles. Killed that deer. I actually headlined an episode of the Whitetail Fix on the Sportsman channel. I think it was season 2 of that year. It's kind of cool, some history there. Then let's jump over to my full body mount. This is probably one of the most talked about deer in my entire collection. This deer cost my dad some money. He lost a bet with me. I knew about this deer the whole life of this deer. He was born without a tail. He looked like a mule deer. We gave him the nickname Bob just because of the bobtail. 3 years old, passed him on film. I knew he would blow into something decent with the frame that he had. 4 years old, started getting trail camera pictures of him like I did the year before. He was pretty consistent early. You know, I just never could catch him with work and school and all that going on. He disappeared later in the season. I don't know where he went. Thought maybe the neighbor killed him. Didn't know anything about him. No more pictures. Rolled into the following year, talking to a buddy of mine that hunted a couple ridges over and said, man, I got pictures last year of that big 10 of yours with no tail. So I was pretty interested to see his pictures. I kind of figured out where that deer wintered. Went in, scouted. It was the 13th of December, I believe, is when I killed him. So it was after gun season. And the cool thing about this deer, it's kind of hard to talk about. My grandmother died Thanksgiving that year, and she always told me she'd been sick, and she told me, you know, that someday when she was gone, she'd make sure that I kill a trophy deer, because up until this deer, I'd never killed a book animal. And I remember that night sitting in my tree stand, I said a little prayers, talking to my grandma, and said, if you could, just send me that deer, please, you know. And literally just a little bit later, I heard deer coming down off the ridge. I look over, and lo and behold, here comes Bob. Like I said, it was crazy because I hung that stand 2 days prior. I asked my grandma up above to help me out, and here he is. Dad said if I ever killed that deer, he'd full body mount him for me. And so I called him from the tree and said, buddy, you better get your checkbook ready. And he's like, no, you didn't. And I said, yeah, I see him laying about 40 yards up the ridge. And I said, I'll wait until you get here because this was my first Ohio big buck. He grossed 150 and some change, netted 146 even, so I cleared it by 6 inches from book. And what made it even more not bittersweet, but just awesome, Dad's 145 and 4/8. So I beat Dad by 4/8 on book. So I hold, in our family, the largest booked buck that we've ever killed. So that was a good year. That was like the year that really got me transitioned to, let's let these 120s go, these 130s. Let's try to kill that 140 and up. So then the following year, muzzleloader season, I killed this deer. He was 143 net as an 8-point. He's pretty significant. Had a lot of history with him. Tried to get on that deer early. Took a vacation from work the entire first week of archery season and passed a lot of really nice bucks that the younger me would have been like over the top to kill. Stuck it out, went through seasons, like, now I'm going to kill that deer. I'm waiting on the right weather. Well, muzzleloader season came first night. Smoked him, so I was super pumped there. And then there's 2 deer left. We got this big, gnarly, non-typical, and then this big typical here, which is kind of cool because I killed them on a piece of ground I actually used to own. I was hunting this deer. This was 2000. I killed him the 2018-19 season, but I killed him muzzleloader season of 2019, so that's my most recent deer. I did not kill a buck last year in 2019 season. It's the first time in 17 years that I did not put a tag on a whitetail buck. So anyway, so we'll back up to the 2017-18 season. I'm hunting this deer here. He's a 4-year-old at that time. I was married back then. My wife had a baby November 6th, which as a whitetail hunter, you know that's just like the worst time ever to have a child if you're like me and you like to chase them. I was in the hospital for 4 days with her, and I was like, man, I got to get out there and hunt. I know this weather pattern. I know this front coming, that all these big deer are going to be on their feet. So I asked her the day we got home from the hospital, I was like, can I please go deer hunting tonight? Like, please let me. And I said, I'll hunt the closest stand to the house. Again, hunting this 10 over here. And she's like, yeah, that's fine. We had family in, so it's not like I left her alone with a newborn. But I get in the stand at 3 o'clock. I didn't even take a shower. I literally took half my gear, just like, if I see a deer tonight, great. So this deer comes out at 3:30. I have no history with him. Don't know a single thing about this deer other than I couldn't believe my eyes when he stepped out. He's a 163 and 2/8 gross, which is my largest score-wise ever. He's got 16 scoreable points and smoked him. He walked right to me, double lunged him. He didn't go anywhere. It was kind of cool. I called up to the house like, hey, I killed a deer. And they couldn't believe it. I was like, you just got to the stand. So then moving on to the last deer that I have killed is this guy. He was the hardest cat and mouse game I've ever played chasing a whitetail. He lived on a 15-acre piece of dirt that I owned. I catered to the deer. I put ponds in for him. I had every food source from corn to beans to clover to turnips. I mean, anything that the deer could want, I planted for him to try to kill him that year. Finally caught up to him the second 2-day of Ohio gun season, which is towards the end of December. Sunday night, he come out of the CRP on the edge of my cornfield. I had my 20 gauge in my hand. I thought the only shot I had of him was facing me. It's not a shot. I wouldn't have tried it at all with archery equipment. But 50 yards with my 20 gauge, I'm like, I mean, that deer's going to drop if I hit him just right. So I shoot him. He drops. I'm like, heck yeah, my plan worked. He gets up and he takes off running. I'm like, that's not good. The only hope at that point is I've hit something vital that he's going to hemorrhage and I'm going to find him down in the ravine. Looked for that deer literally for like 4 days. Couldn't find him. I literally took off work the next day to try to find that deer. Couldn't find him. I'm running out of season. That's the only deer I wanted to kill that year, and I couldn't get on him. So I didn't know what to do. I was like, I had an opportunity. I blew it. Well, muzzleloader season, I was hunting my lease in the next county over. One of the stands I had at the house I wanted. So I went down into my ravine to grab it, pulled it to go move it, and he was bedded down in the creek, still alive. I couldn't believe it. I was like, holy cow, you gotta be kidding me. So I snuck back up to the house, grabbed my muzzleloader, crawled back down, shot him at about 60 yards, put a good shot on him, and he didn't make it. It was like 50 yards, and he was done for. And what's even crazier is I did not know until after the fact. I had trail camera pictures of him the night before in my cornfield. Somebody else had shot him after I had shot him. They had put a, I'm assuming shotgun. I don't know what it was, muzzleloader maybe, right behind his shoulder. But luckily my bullet was the one that did him in, and I got to wrap my tag on him, and 3 years of history with that deer. So one last thing I want to show you before I kick you guys out is this picture here. Out of all the deer I've ever killed, this is the most sentimental one. This is my 163. There I am holding my 4-day-old baby girl. So hopefully in 20 years I can relive this memory right now with her, and we can be touring through her house. So I don't care where you go, but you gotta get out of here. Just be careful where you're going.
Thanks for watching this episode of Whitetail Cribs. If you're new to the channel, be sure to hit that subscribe button. And if you're wondering who the heck we are and how the heck we travel across the country to record these episodes, we are Exodus Trail Cameras and simply believe quality trail cameras should not cost a fortune. That's why 5 years ago, we started a direct-to-consumer company to tackle some of the biggest frustrations we've seen as typical trail camera users: product longevity, product performance, and customer service. We simply build cameras that flat out work in the harshest conditions and back them up with best-in-class customer service. We're proud to say we have the industry's leading 5-year warranty that even includes theft and accidental damage coverage. If you'd like to learn more about Exodus and the products we have to offer, click the link in the description and head over to our website. If you have any questions, feel free to drop them in a comment below or shoot us an email.